My name is Dennis. For those of you who don't know me yet, feel free to get me anytime, right? Today's class will be about turtle escapes because Preet only shows shitty maintenance and how to stay there and stay safe and do nothing else because just YouTube it, you know? So I just wanted to do a class shitting on Preet as much as possible for not showing how to actually get away from there and just have a good time overall, you know? So the reason, and we gotta give it to him, is the reason why it's important is because it's quite frankly very effective in the current meetup, right? So he was ahead of the curve a little bit. If you've watched last ADCC, you could see that a lot. There was a lot of turtle battles. And the reason for that and the reason for the overall meta around turtle is the rule set. Rule sets dictate the meta we're playing. Because of the rule set at ADCC, people got to turtle to not give away takedown points, for example. Because if they get taken down and they turtle within 3 seconds, no points are awarded. If you get your guard passed, it's the same thing. It's the same thing in IBJJF. You get an advantage, but you don't get your points, right? So that's one of the reasons why people do it. Let's take MMA for an example. Do people turtle in MMA? The answer is yes, all the time. The reason why is because they can stand up from turtle. And you cannot just easily stand up from guard if someone is in front of you and he's pressuring in a little, right? And in MMA, generally speaking, if you're on the bottom, you're on the losing end because you're going to get punched in the face, right? So the meta of getting punched in the face dictates that people want to turtle to get back up. And it's not about believing it or not, just watch the fights. How do people get up in an MMA context? And they turtle. Sometimes they turtle into a single leg, right? They come to the knees to wrestle up single legs, but like it's all very closely related and connected. So having good turtle escapes, especially if you're a competitor, is really, really important. Just rule set wise and meta wise. Even if you're not looking into that and just want to guard yourself and not get smashed, it's a good idea to turtle. The reason why is, if I have Giles here, is if Giles is on his back, I can't properly pin him, right? So when we're here, I can hold him down because of my size and my strength, right? It's easy because he's so much smaller and he needs to be better to get away, right? He cannot stand up from there. But if he's in turtle, I can put all my weight onto him and I cannot pressure him into anything, right? That's really, really hard to do. So turtling is not only a good idea if you fight in competitions where the rule set dictates that that should be or could be a good idea, but also if you just want to guard yourself, right? And one of my biggest critiques about Preet is that he actually doesn't show any escapes from turtle at all. I think he knows them, but he just, you know, he just uses the easy way out and just refers to YouTube because if you do his postures and his hand fighting, it's easy. Everything works. I think that's the mantra, right? Please correct me when I'm wrong. So, today we're going to talk about turtle escapes a little. So what I'm going to do with you is give you pathways. We're not going to talk a lot about technical applications because quite frankly there's a lot of things you can do and it's way too much to put everything into one class. It's like, it doesn't work like that. So I would need to just take one escape, show it to you, and then a couple of variations, and then you walk away with one escape, but you don't see the bigger picture. And for this class, I just want you to see the bigger picture. So we're going to experiment a little after, right? So I'm going to give you a couple of examples of how you could do things, and then you just do that. And now the funny thing about this is it's kind of an experiment, how much you can take away from it. So I want to have short-term feedback from you. How did you like the class? Could you, imagine the things that we were doing, that you can implement them, stuff like that. But I also want long-term feedback, so I can actually see if the class structure worked for you long-term, not just short-term. So shoot me a message, and because we have it on film, you can always rewatch things, get ideas, and keep working with it. Because truth be told, everything I'm going to show you, if you don't take it away with you and work with it, it's going to be gone. You need to be good enough at some things today that you can reproduce at home and further practice it and work with this stuff, because otherwise it will be gone. Does everyone get that? So please give me short and long-term feedback on the class, right? And if you think it sucked, tell me. If you think it was great, please tell Pri. So the first thing we're gonna do is start with the turtle alignment. You need to have a proper turtle unless you want to get mauled, right? So that's the first thing we need to do. I know that many of you already know it, but for the people that don't know it, we just need to do it, right? So what people refer to as open turtle and closed turtle is the following. Open turtle is there's a lot of space. He's very stable, but it's easy for me to insert inside position on him, right? Closed turtle he's really closed up, but he doesn't have a lot of base, and it's really easy to bring him down. And what Pri's turtle tries to tackle, and some turtle variations that wrestlers do tries to tackle, is exactly that. So what Jaws is doing is he can be live toes or dead toes, so the toes can be on the mat, and they can be flat. Both has pros and cons. If they're flat, dead feet, he's very stable because his center of gravity is low, and it's harder to get a lever on the legs, right? If he's active toes, it's a little easier to grab a hold of them, and his center of gravity is a little higher. But he can press off of his feet a little better. So he's more mobile. So depending on what you want to do, you choose one or the other. Some people are not flexible enough in the toes to have active toes comfortably without, having your toes hurt a lot, especially if someone presses onto you. So start with dead toes. Dead toes meaning they're flat. His hip is as low as possible, and his knees are wide. He's very, very stable here. His elbows are in the crook of his hip. So I cannot just punch inside position here, either with the hands or with the knees. See, I can use all my body weight, and I can't break his position, even though I'm heavier. That's the position you want to have. The head is on the floor. The spine is relatively neutral. So if he puts his toes on the mat, he should be able to lift his knees up. If you can't do that, your spinal alignment is not correct and you're going to hurt your neck, right? So you need to be able to tripod off of that position. Because imagine he has bad head position and I start lifting up his feet and he's going to tweak his neck. We don't want that, right? So what I want you to do is get your partner in position and try to get your hands in, try to get your knee in with a little body weight, try to off-balance him a little, then let him go into tripod. See if that works. Now walk around a little bit. So get motion in, one way, the other way. That's good. So he's going to come back. The last thing we're going to do is windshield wiper. So we're actually windshield wipering our feet and moving without touching the floor. So if Giles starts windshield wipering, he can actually move and create unbalances for me. This will be important for the escapes because you don't want to escape against stable positions, right? So get the position down. I know it's a lot, but most of you are familiar with it. Get the position down, get the movement out of the tripod down, and get the windshield wiper motions down. Does that make sense for you? Anybody need to see anything again? The windshield wipers? So what he does, turn around. What he does is he's just moving his feet a little bit to the side, and now he can adjust his hip angle. Now what Giles does is he's putting his knees together while he does it, and I don't want him to do that. So windshield wiper like this, move the head and scoot. Windshield wiper, move the head, scoot. Right? Because you don't want to narrow your knee position unless you want to be tilted over, right? So keep your knee position as good as possible, and you don't stay there. It's a one continuous motion. Good? Do you want to clap? Yeah. On 3. 1, 2. Okay, some of you had problems with the windshield wiper motions. So we're gonna do it again, but add another movement that you need for escapes, okay? I don't expect you to be really, really good at the movement we're gonna do, but it will pay dividends in the long run and you need to work with it because we're gonna do Granby rolls. We're gonna do half Granbys and full Granbys. Those are really, really important movements that you need all the time, right? Because it's a little bit like inverting just from the knees. You could say that, right? So when we're here, we have good head position, we have good elbow position. I can be flat or active. Now I windshield wiper both feet. I scoot with my head and this knee is gonna scoot with me. And at the beginning, you can do those motions separately, but at the end, you really wanna have one continuous motion. So when I'm here and I wiper, my head already moves and I scoot this back. I cannot stay there for long periods of time because I'm not in base, right? But I need to move to get an angle. And when we actually do the escapes later, that makes a huge difference and you need to be able to do it, right? So what you can practice is do the windshield wiper and then we're gonna go half and full Granbys. And I want you to do it with your partner so you have a sense of direction. I'm gonna show it solo first and then I'm gonna show it with Jots. But the movement itself is rolling from one shoulder to the other. So first, I am gonna bring my shoulder to the mat. Now I can go live toes and walk onto my shoulder girdle till my head is in the middle of my legs. And then I just fall forward. This would be a half Granby. I don't do the whole motion yet. I'm just gonna do half of it. So ideally, you're gonna windshield wiper, get in position, walk, and fall. Right? That's the half Granby. The full Granby is just walking further. So you're rolling from one shoulder to the other. So once we're here and you've started walking, you don't stop here. You keep walking until you're on that shoulder and you go into position here again. So actually nothing changes, just not falling forward and bringing the hip to the floor. And many of you do those things essentially when you invert, right? So when we do inversion training here, like that's essentially the same thing, right? I just started seating, went to my knees. Like I could start here and go supine again, but it's the same motion. I can walk from one shoulder blade to the other, turtle or not turtle. That's the motion I want you to do. So first, do a half Granby. So when we're here, ideally, practice the windshield wiper first. And then half Granby. If you can, have the toes on the mat until your head is in between your legs. And then you're just gonna fall forward. That's the half Granby. The full Granby from here would be from one shoulder, walking, walking, walking to the other shoulder, and just turtling again. Okay, those are the motions I want you to practice. And you do it with a partner, so you have a sense of direction, because you can do it all over the mat, and then the angles end up wrong, right? So if I Jots here, if he is gonna half Granby and I'm on his side here, first he's gonna use what? Windshield wiper, right? So he's gonna windshield wiper out. I'm just gonna follow a little. Then the near side shoulder is going to hit the floor. And now he just walks his feet over until we're here. And he can come back into position. And now he has the right position to get engagement again because he has an existing guard. If he does it without me, he's going to end up here because he doesn't have a sense of direction, which would be the wrong angle. And it's a little bit the same with the full Granby. So when he is back in turtle and he starts windshield wipering, and now he starts full Granbying. He rolls, 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 comes onto his knees, and he's in almost one straight line with me. That's what he wants, right? Those are the directions you're going to aim for. And that's easier if you have a partner. And the partner can help a little to stabilize if I have problems. But ultimately, you want to do it without needing help of your partner to stabilize your position. It has a little bit to do with mobility, but if you can touch your toes to the mat here, you will definitely be able to do that. You can make it work if you don't put your feet to the ground, but it's a little harder. But it's essentially the same thing, right? So if you're not mobile enough, you can just, hover here a little and go to the other side. This works too. It's just a little more unstable, right? But you need to get a feel for the position, maybe post a little that you don't fall, right? So just get a sense for the motion. And if you can't make it work yet, don't worry, we're gonna continue doing it. Okay? 1, 2. Did everyone get the motion down at least to a certain extent? It doesn't need to be perfect, but you can do the half Granby and the full Granby to a certain extent. I'm repeating myself. Sorry. Certain extent. Did you get that? Yeah? All right. Any questions regarding those motions? Good. So, we're going to start with actual escapes, because those movements, along with some other movements, will lead to escapes, right? And because it's the most unintuitive motion that you need for the escapes at the beginning, that's what we practice a little. But we're not going to start with Granbys. I just wanted to get you the movement down, right? The reason why it's important that you escape is you want to go back to the offensive. If you're stuck in an offensive cycle for the whole round, you're not going to get anything done, right? And people abuse the turtle, because what they do is they get to the turtle and just stay here and don't do anything. And if I'm not good enough to break the position open, nothing's going to happen for the whole round, which is not a good thing, right? Sometimes people get a little better, and maybe I get like an inside space or anything, and he starts to hand fight, clear that, gets back into position, and it starts over. And I can't get any more than that. If he does that, he's doing himself and his training partner, in case me, a disservice. Because he's not getting any better, and I am neither. Because you're stuck, right? Okay, you can be safe there and stay there for long periods of time. That's great. Now it's time to move on. And either let your partner get in deeper, so you need to practice later escapes, or you need to get the fuck out of there. Oh God, I said fuck, we have people from the United States here, right? Can we beat that? Sorry. So, if you don't do that, you will not learn anything, because if you can stay safe for a minute, you can do that for the rest as well. Like, it doesn't do you any good. You don't practice any new skills. Unless there's someone that can break you open, then you can practice that. But as soon as you can stay safe, let him in deeper and practice later, hand fighting sequences, escapes, whatever, or get out of there and get back into offense. So if you want to work with the escapes or the position, what you can just simply do is go back there, let yourself get past again, turtle again, and work your escapes again, right? And this way, you get repetitions in an area that you're not as proficient in as yet, and your partner actually can do something to you. If I can't do anything to him, there's no point for him nor for me to do the same thing all over again. Does that make sense to you guys? So let people in, work, do something new, get beat, right? And a lot of the things we've been teaching backwards, right? So what is the last thing, like if you teach backwards, what's the last thing you do from turtle? The escape. So there's an argument that you can make that it could be a good idea to learn the escapes relatively soon, because that's where you want to end up anyways. That's the end point. You want to escape, and then everything opens up again, right? So if you practice escapes right from the get-go, it's probably going to do you good, because you're actually trying to get away and not just stay there and do nothing, right? And if you can do that, you can stay there longer. You can do all the hand fighting sequences. You can let him in deeper. but you need to be able to escape those positions, right? The first escape I want you to learn is just stand up, literally, just stand up. There's some technical applications to it, like we have an inside leg stand up, outside leg stand up, 4-point stand up, depending on where my partner is, where the weight is distributed and everything, but you just want to get up. The higher you are, the harder it is to attack you with submissions. The harder it is to attack the back. And those are the things that are nearest. So get up, right? And don't believe me, just watch ADCC and see how that went for most people. Like, it was really hard to keep people down. It was really hard to score on them, really hard to get anything. Even if they got one hook in the seatbelt, like the second hook, they couldn't get it. They couldn't choke, they couldn't get the back. And now, like, it flares off into back defense. We're not gonna go there today, but it's a good argument that can be made, right? So, if my partner has good turtle, I'm either heavy on the hips or heavy on the shoulders. I can't be both at the same time. It's impossible, right? Either I'm heavy here or I'm heavy here. I can't be both at the same time. And this changes during the fight. It doesn't always stay the same. So you need to connect those things. So if I'm heavy on the hip, he can move his upper body up. If I'm heavy on the hack, he can move his lower body up, right? And then I just want you to experiment with how to get up from there. I'm not gonna show anything more. I just want you to get up, and then we'll see what problems you have. Then I may give you an idea here and there. But it's essentially, you come up here, maybe you do this, maybe you come up here. Maybe it's heavy on the hip, and you start coming up here, right? All those are essential movements you need. It's nothing new, right? But experiment a little, and then we'll see. Everyone got it? 1, 2.
Yeah, I'd want to hit if I was if I'm ever in this position.
So standing up is the one thing that you can experiment with the most without me showing actual techniques. That's why I wanted you to just try out a couple of ways. So I'm pretty sure you've encountered some problems. And hate to break it to you, we cannot solve all of them today, right? But I want to show you one way how you can get away when they're heavy on the hips and have a tight waist. So when you're escaping, or turtle as a system itself, the first step is always getting to a turtle. So you get past, you get taken down, you get to a turtle. Then it is having good alignment, right? The position needs to be good. And off of that, I need to be able to hand fight if someone gets control, right? The next thing would be height. Can you get height or not? Do you want to get height or not? It has pros and cons, right? But the game changes a little if you come up, depending on what control your partner has. And that's the next point. Is always, what part of your body gets controlled? Does he have or she have a tight waist, a body lock, a seatbelt, a Merkel, a claw, whatever? Like, how do they control you? And depending on how much control they have, you have different options. So we are gonna start with him having a little control, but not too much, with a tight waist. A tight waist is called seatbelt from wrestlers, or from wrestling. But the problem is we already have a seatbelt, so we call this tight waist. But in wrestling, this is often referred to as a seatbelt. So my elbow can be shallow. This is a shallow tight waist or a deep tight waist. This has pros and cons, because with a deep tight waist, I can break his hip down better. But my elbow is more vulnerable to get attacked or attached, so he can roll me over, right? So that has pros and cons as well. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna bring it medium deep, right? And I'm just gonna control here. My rib is heavy on his hip, and I have a deep tight waist. That's the starting point we're gonna choose. So when Jazz has that, and he has a deep tight waist, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab his knuckle line. That's where my grip is. I don't want to get the wrist or the forearm or anything. I want to grab the knuckle line with the thumb. I'm not twisting fingers, don't forget that, right? So the first thing I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna move, right? This time I use the tripod. From here, I can start building base up. Post the near hand. This is an outside leg stand up. The reason why this is important is if I don't address it, he's gonna pull me to a hip. And now I need to play differently, right? But if I move away, and while I move away, like a tripod, I post and I put it in my back pocket. Now he cannot pull me back again. So from here, he wants to, probably get back exposure, right? So he starts running around, and I need to get my angle off of it. So I need to come up. If he's not paying attention, I can underhook, knee pick, and go into counterattacks right away. But more often than not, if people are paying attention, you get back to neutral. And if you're a gut player, no worries. You're just gonna pull guard. Get position, move out, get up, move, move, move. Guard pull. Right? Don't forget to get 1 point of contact, otherwise the IBJJ says you're the devil. So don't do that. Right? So what? I wanted to have my guard back. I just stood up. I can have my guard back. It's an easy way to do it. Right? This is against the tight waist. Do you need to see it again, or can we start?
I have a question.
Yes.
If you reach for the backhand, you post on the near hand. Isn't he able to grab that post with his free hand?
Well, he can post it.
Or does it matter?
But as long as I put weight on it, he cannot just strip it. So even if he can't post the hand, so let's say we're here, and I move out, right? And he gets that. I have weight on it, so if he tries to move it, like I'm long gone before he can do anything with it. But again, that's timing. If you stay there for too long, he's gonna do something with it. Maybe claw, maybe get wrist control, do whatever. But as long as you have one continuous motion, you're here, you move, you drop, you come up, you move, that's not gonna be a problem. Okay? 1, 2.
Yeah, that's pretty much better, right?
I know you didn't have a long time to practice that, but as I said before, I just want you to get a general idea, walk away with it, short and long-term feedback, because I want to get to some other things, right? Because the first type of escape is just stand up, and from there you can wrestle, you can pull guard, you can do whatever, right? The second one is pull guard directly. Sometimes it's easier and sometimes it's harder to do that depending on what control you can get, what control he has on you as well. Because there's some positions you can pull guard off and some you can't. And sometimes you need to come up in order to be able to pull guard again, right? So that's an important thing to have in mind, right? So when we're here and we have the tight waist again, he starts the same thing. He gets the knuckle line, comes up, no problem. But what if he doesn't want to come up? Or I'm just too heavy, I follow, I break his hip down, he needs to come back up, and you just don't want or can't get up. Then you need to have an alternative. The grip he's going to take is the same. So while he's windshield wipering out, he's putting it into his back pocket again. Brings the near shoulder onto the mat, and he starts to Granby. So if he goes half Granby and can get in, that's great, right? But if I push, he needs to, what? Do full Granby. And we're here. But you see, the position is different. Now it's more of a front headlock type of situation. And if he doesn't stay here and pulls guard right away while guarding his neck, he has his guard back. So sometimes you need to go the long way. If you can get your guard back with just a half Granby and motion before that, perfect. But if you can't, full Granby, don't get guillotined, and pull guard. So it's more or less this motion.
we're here. I start Granbying. I want to come back in with a half Granby, but he pushes me. So I go forward. I just plant the foot, guard myself, and pull guard. It's one continuous motion. Right? It's just guard pulling. If you want to practice further or this is too easy, work with an additional hook. So when we're here, he has a tight waist, and I can get this one. Now it's really, really hard to follow for him. So now I can go Granby this way, or I can say I'm going to go full inversion this way and can get my bar guard break. It's the same thing. Nothing changes. Those are the same movements. It's just Granby rolls, half Granby, full Granby, with different grips and types of control. Right? And even if he has body locks, you can half Granby, or full Granby rather. Right? You can even do that. It's no problem. But you can play around with Granbys. Half Granby is always the shortest way of the Granbys. Right? But sometimes you need to go further and full Granby. Maybe you're angle-wise more on the full Granby side because the angle you can create with that is different. So maybe that's what you want to do. If you want to get back into wrestling, maybe a good idea to the full Granby because you're going to end up on your knees and then you can wrestle and do things, right? But you can also get a hook and just go the other way and pull guard. But this sometimes is the hardest, even though it's the simplest. So when he's here, grab this, get this hook, and just sit the guard. Right? Now if he's paying attention, that shouldn't be super, super easy. But people don't pay attention. So you can play around with it. And sometimes the danger of that direct pull gives you the opportunity to do all the other things I've been showing. So play around a little bit with the Granbys. Half Granby, full Granby, depending on where you are. And I don't expect you to be able to do all of it. As I said, short and long-term goals, and feedback afterwards. Okay? 1, 2. So, there's one more thing, but we're not going to do it because there's no time and I still want to get a picture, right? So, the last form of escape is a reversal, and there's different ways to go about it. But, I mean, it's Aaron's class after, right? So it doesn't matter if we go 5 minutes more, right? And he's ignoring me for no apparent reason. 5 minutes. You give me 5 minutes, right? He doesn't care, right? So, you have different means for reversals. You have makikomi rolls, for example. So makikomi rolls. Yeah. I don't want to roll by myself. Like this, right? You have switches. Oh, and he can grab me. Oh, shoot. Right? We have different forms of reversals we can hit from those positions. With different levels, we can do them from the 4-point, we can do them standing. So all the escapes I essentially showed you work from the standing position as well. And then it becomes really interesting, right? Because you cannot just hit them on the floor. Let's say, you have problems hitting it on the floor. You lack velocity. You need more of that. So you come up, and then you can drop back down and use that momentum to hit your reversals, for example. Hit the switches, do everything else. Right? So everything comes together, right? And if he's trying to break you down back again, he often gives you half Granbys, right? So you can combine everything. And it's impossible, and I hope you see that, to get the point across on what kind of escapes you have and what possibilities you have, and let you practice everything in 1 hour. It's just not possible. That's why I decided to do the experiment and just, show a lot and see how you fare and how you can experiment with those at home. And that's why it's important for me to get short and long-term feedback off of you. Because if all of you said short-term it sucked, but long-term it was great, then there's merit to it. Then we can keep doing classes in that form. But if all of you long and short-term say it was shitty, then we're not going to do it again because you didn't get anything away out of it. That's it, right? So please give me feedback, right? And rewatch the stuff and see and experiment and see what you can make out of it, right? So question?
Yeah. Where do you want the long-term feedback? Email, Facebook?
Whatever. I'll catch you everywhere. Right? So you can reach me via mail, WhatsApp, Facebook. Just shoot me a message. Instagram works as well. No problem whatsoever, right? And tomorrow is White Belt Appreciation Open Mat. Is that what they named it? Okay, so I make an exception for non-white belts that visited my class that have problems with those escapes. I will help you regardless, right? Isn't that gracious of me? I think we can clap now, right?